Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. My name is Christina Previtt. I am one of two lead faculty for clinical management of the fitness, athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum. I think that I am on both Facebook and Instagram. My internet connection is not that great, so I might drop. I'm going to apologize in advance, but if I drop, I will finish on one platform and then switch to the other. For all of my American colleagues, this Canadian is wishing you a very happy Memorial Day. I hope that you get to enjoy some time with family and friends and reflect on all the things that your country has been able to provide you with, and that you get to maybe suffer through mirth today. We're going to show some pregnancy and postpartum modifications to MRF because it is also our gut check for this week. And we are also going to show an older adult edition like we do for every week, but this week is going to have a very special spin to it with it being MRF. If you are interested in getting into our next cohort of clinical management of the fitness, athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum, we are starting at the end of June, and we're already about 25-ish% sold out. So it's super exciting to see that people are interested in learning how to work with the fitness female who is starting her journey through motherhood. Okay. Let's jump in to our topic for today. And so today's talk is entitled, Let's Stop Modifying Exercise for the Sake of Modifying Exercise. And I'm kind of going to put this through the filter and lens of the pregnancy and postpartum space. But I think that we could probably talk about this in regards to a lot of different pathologies and with age, right? Because we're going to see this in the geriatric space as well. And so it's just not appropriate. And what do I mean by that? Why did this topic come to be? As I've dived more into the con ed side of the pelvic space, I recognize that sometimes, and this is kind of all in PT, is like we're looking really for strict guideposts for our clinical thinking. And it can be really challenging to do that in the pregnancy and postpartum space because every female's pregnancy is going to be different. Her level of athleticism coming into her pregnancy is going to be different. Her birth story is going to be different. And then her postpartum journey and her supports around her postpartum journey are going to be different. And so we can't just have this checklist that says, okay, you're 12 weeks pregnant. All right, let's get rid of this and this and this and this and this. And we're going to stop doing this and we're going to modify this. And you can't be lifting. You're going to have to bring your weights down from, your 80% definitely down to 40% because you're 12 weeks pregnant. And then you're going to do this and this and this and this. And that tends to be what happens, right? We tend to say, oh, okay, you're pregnant. We're going to scale everything way back. We are not going to let you really get that high of exercise that you love because we need to do everything to protect you and baby. And I want to kind of use these as two examples for why we need to be going through a lens of empowerment rather than a lens of fear and vulnerability. And then we're going to talk about considerations after that. So when we think about the Diastasis Recti literature, a lot of times women are told to pretty much eliminate any core exercise when they become pregnant, or at least after the first trimester. And there's tons of posts on social media around pregnancy safe or Diastasis Recti safe exercises. And there's a couple of really wonderful accounts that are really trying to debunk a lot of these myths. And The reason why is because we actually have no literature to support that eliminating core or forward flexion based movements during pregnancy will eliminate risk for diastasis recti. And so if you're not in this space, diastasis recti is a natural mechanism that happens during pregnancy where we see a thinning and lengthening of the linea alba in order to make room for baby, but it can persist postpartum. And aesthetically, that's why some women will complain about having the mom pooch. And functionally, it can create some issues with generating tension across the anterior core wall that are often goals of physiotherapy management with DRA. But what we cannot say is that avoiding sit-ups in the second trimester is going to prevent diastasis recti from happening. And there's some actual danger in trying to use some of that communication strategy, because what can happen is the female who now has a persistent diastasis postpartum says, what the heck? I did everything right. I modified everything that my PT told me, and I still got this diastasis. Like, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? And it's not about that. It's about the fact that we need to look for the justification for why we would modify diastasis recti and just say that we are trying to pretty much keep your body moving as well as possible, and your body is showing signs that it isn't managing pressure well. So we're going to modify this exercise out. And what we know with the literature is that there is a lot of things that are completely outside of a woman's control that are very, very strong predictors or prognostic indicators for the development of DRA postpartum. And many of them can be around like parity. If you have more than one baby in there, your belly is going to stretch more. Some things around BMI is a bit like, it's kind of wishy-washy. It's not really a strong predictor. A lot of your obstetrical history is going to come in, and your genetics. Do you have a predisposition for hypermobility or lack of ligamentous support across your body? Then that might create more of an environment where DRA can be more persistent postpartum. And so those are things that women actually can't really control. So saying, after the second trimester, we are modifying all core exercises out because you're pregnant isn't really appropriate. What is more appropriate is looking for these exercises to a different variation and making sure that your communication reflects that change. And so what we advocate for when it comes to the CMFA pregnancy and postpartum course is pressure management. Are you showing any coning or doming? One, that is not something that is going to generate fear. It is something that is just showing that your body is growing and the baby is getting bigger. But can we move those exercises out because it's showing that your body is already under a bit more stress than it's used to, and we don't want to feed into that stress. We want to alleviate it. And so that's when we start thinking about triggering modifications or scaling options for diastasis recti. The same thing can be true with urinary incontinence and prolapse. So prolapse is a descent of one or more of the pelvic organs towards the vaginal opening. And there has been a big misnomer that you shouldn't be lifting during pregnancy, or that it's dangerous to lift postpartum too early because of risk of prolapse. And we've talked about this a lot. But what can happen is that we start saying, oh, you're in your second trimester. Oh, you're doing CrossFit and you're now in your 14 weeks of pregnancy. We're going to start getting rid of this and this and this and this and this. And you're modifying because you're pregnant. And that's not really appropriate. And sometimes, again, the communication can be, well, you don't want to prolapse. So we're going to modify all of these to protect your pelvic floor and prevent you from having a prolapse. And again, we have zero literature to support that the exercise that you choose to do during your pregnancy has been linked to risk of prolapse or symptomatic prolapse. And there's differences between anatomical and objective sensation of prolapse. And so what we know in the prolapse literature is that the strongest indicators and prognostic indicators for the development of prolapse is age, forceps or vacuum delivery, and the parity. So we know that the more children you have, the more likely you are to have had a prolapse as you deliver. And so a lot of those things, again, are outside of a woman's control. And they may come back again and say, I did everything right. I don't understand how I am now struggling to come back to lifting postpartum when I did everything that my PT said to do, and I modified everything out so that I wouldn't develop a prolapse. And really, again, we don't what's happening, or that is going to protect your pelvic floor in any way. But we know, again, that your body is under more stress during pregnancy. So we change strategies and give that communication and that education to change strategies during pregnancy in order to manage pressure on the pelvic floor. And for us at CMFA Pregnancy and Postpartum, we talk about advocating for removing weightlifting belts into the second trimester because the baby is growing outside of the pelvis and there's just putting a lot of increased abdominal pressure there, and changing a Valsalva strategy to a free breathing strategy where you're exhaling on exertion or some permutation of that breath work. But when I talk about all of these things in general, we try to give guideposts around like most pregnancies when you're going to feel, or a woman is going to feel like they need to start changing things up because of changing sensations in their body. And the fact that that's going to happen earlier in subsequent pregnancies than in first pregnancies. But ultimately what it comes down to is that we are giving education and justification for some of the changes that we are making in a woman's exercise program. It is not our job to parent our client. So we can give that education. We can say, this is what we think. We're not just modifying because you're 12 weeks pregnant. We're modifying because we are seeing X, Y, Z that is happening, or you're telling us that you are feeling X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z in your body as you are lifting. So let's try and make some of these modifications. And then if those modifications aren't effective for changing some of those symptoms and they're becoming increasingly more bothersome, then we're going to move it to this, or we're going to switch it out to this. Modifying because you're pregnant, it's too simplistic. It doesn't really take into account the nuance that happens during a woman's pregnancy and how every pregnancy is different and every woman's motivation to exercise during their pregnancy is different. And when we start with saying that we're trying to avoid these exercises, or we are trying to do prolapse safe or diastasis safe exercises, we're feeding this thought process of fear and vulnerability to movement during exercise or during pregnancy, during this time in a woman's life, during the postpartum journey as well. And really what we should be doing is empowering our female clients to move in a way that makes their body feel good, respect their autonomy, and allow them to navigate their pregnancy in the way that gives them joy. Because a lot of times during pregnancy and into postpartum, it feels like you give this huge amount of yourself up in order to protect your little one. And it's so justified and it's so rational, but emotionally it can be tough to tackle because female athletes or women who really enjoy moving their body freely or felt like they could move their body freely, it can feel like a sense of loss. And the postpartum journey is long. And so it's a big chunk of their athletic life where you feel like there is restrictions. So just saying, you're 16 weeks pregnant, it's time for you to get rid of this, this, and this without giving the appropriate justification or seeing that justification is a little bit inappropriate. And so we need to try and think through a lot of these things and make those judgment calls when it is appropriate to do so. All right, that is my rant for today. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Again, if you're looking to jump into our next cohort, CMFA Pregnancy and Postpartum is starting end of June. That'll probably be the last cohort before I become a mom of two. So you guys get to see me in late pregnancy trying to navigate my exercise journey. So I hope you all have a wonderful long weekend that you get to spend with family and friends. And let me know what your thoughts are on this. I would love to hear your opinions, the way that you kind of go about it from a clinical perspective when it comes to exercise modification in this population. All right, have a great day, everyone.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.